General Hospital. A bargain with shadows, Michael's alibi, Jacinda's secrets, and a love story that might explode in Port Charles. Salvation rarely arrives without a price tag attached. Michael Corinthos, newly single and reflexively protective of his children, has stepped into one of the town's oldest traps. The deal that feels harmless until the paperwork catches fire. Enter Jacinda, enigmatic, cash-strapped, and carrying a past that drips complications. She is paid to say one simple thing, that she and Michael were at the Port Charles Grill the night Drew Cain was shot. What begins as a tidy exchange of favors quickly turns into an emotional minefield where loyalty is liquid, memory is malleable, and trust is a currency as unstable as the ketamine vial that detonated Drew's reputation months ago. Michael at a crossroads, father first, strategist by necessity. Michael's personal life has hardened into something pragmatic. The divorce from Willow left silence where vows once stood, and the legal framework around Wiley and Amelia now shapes his days more than any dream of romance. He has known grief and disillusionment before, Sasha's devastation, Willow's shattering choices, and because he is a Corinthos, he has learned to put the family perimeter above all things. His affection has become conditional. It survives only if it does not undermine the fortress he's built for his children. That makes him careful. It also makes him a target. So when a shooting investigation threatens to place Michael near the blast radius, he does what Port Charles veterans do, he builds an alibi. The plan is meticulous, receipts and timelines, camera angles and the soft detail of a shared meal. Yet even a perfect alibi needs a beating heart to sell it, and Jacinda, with her poised exterior and just visible fractures, steps into that role with uncanny ease. Who is Jacinda? A past that refuses to stay quiet. Jacinda is not a blank slate, she's an old ledger with entire pages torn out. She arrived from Australia with dwindling funds, a talent for blending in, and a knack for moving exactly where the gossip won't find her, until it does. The ugliest entry on her Port Charles resume is the ketamine affair that smeared Drew Cain's public image. Helping Portia Robinson and Nina Reeves drug Drew wasn't a youthful mistake or a noble lie, it was an act of sabotage with real victims and real fallout. That stain does not fade easily, and it turns every glance in her direction into suspicion. Yet Port Charles is a city that welcomes second acts almost as a civic ritual. Rumors of a benefactor, whispers of a connection to the shadowy Jen Sidwell, and the faint suggestion that Jacinda can be steered to do the necessary thing, make her formidable and precarious in equal measure. She's the kind of person who could decide that the best way to survive is to stand next to Michael, or the kind who might sell his shadow to the highest bidder the moment the lights dim. The alibi as a relationship, manufactured intimacy with real consequences. Nothing is more intimate than practicing a story together. To make their cover believable, Michael and Jacinda rehearse the choreography. Where they sat, when the check came, which dish he ordered, whether she laughed. They add texture, an anecdote about a waiter, the shape of a wine stain on the linen, the way the streetlight hit the glass as they left. The lie gathers a heartbeat, and with it, a strange warmth. Business arrangements in Port Charles often develop a pulse. This one starts to sound a lot like a romance and feels just dangerous enough to be true. Michael is not naive. He sees the fragility in Jacinda's choices, the skittish glance of someone who has lived too long in other people's schemes. But he also sees potential. The whisper of a pretty woman arc hangs in the air. Can a man with resources, principles, and a battered but unbroken heart lift a woman out of the wreckage of her past? The question is seductive because it flatters them both. He becomes rescuer without becoming reckless, she becomes redeemed without becoming tame. The danger, of course, is that neither of them is a movie archetype. They are two people standing on opposite sides of a police report. The investigation tightens, moving targets and shifting loyalties. As the shooting probe intensifies, names swirl: Nina Reeves, Curtis Ashford, and a roster of others who have reasons, secrets, or both. Drew's plight has recast familiar faces as potential suspects, and every new clue throws off sparks that could catch Michael's careful narrative. In that climate, an alibi is a living thing. It must adapt, endure scrutiny, and survive the unexpected question that arrives at the worst possible time. Jacinda's position within that pressure cooker is uniquely volatile. She knows enough to be useful and too much to be safe. If a more appealing offer arrives, immunity, cash, influence, her calculus could change. That is the paradox Michael faces. The more competent an alibi is, the more valuable a witness becomes to everyone else. The Sidwell hypothesis. A puppet master in the wings. Whispers link Jacinda's movements to Jen Sidwell, a name that tends to surface whenever manipulation requires careful hands. If there is a strategist behind the curtain, Jacinda could be both instrument and insurance policy, a person paid to anchor one man's protection while quietly collecting leverage on his entire family. If that theory holds, the alibi is not just cover, it is a doorway for surveillance, a pipeline for information, a cord wrapped silently around the Corinthos household until someone jerks it tight. For Michael, the specter of Sidwell turns the romance from risky to existential. A misread here doesn't just bruise the heart, it endangers Wiley and Amelia's stability, complicates custody, and draws a map for anyone who wants to exploit what Michael would do for his children, which is everything. The moral cost, reputation, custody, and the knife edge of perception. Courts care about optics as much as facts. A father who hires his own alibi can look like a guardian genius, or a man with something to hide. If Jacinda's past bleeds into public view, Michael's association with her will be cast in the ugliest possible light, no matter his intentions. Family court judges and custody evaluators tally choices, and the faintest whiff of criminal adjacency can weigh heavily when weighed against a child's best interests. Michael understands this calculus. His every decision is filtered through Wiley's bedtime and Amelia's breakfast, their school pickups, their doctor visits, their future. A relationship with Jacinda would demand that he ask himself a brutal question: can he love a woman the system does not trust without teaching the system not to trust him? In Port Charles, love stories often stand on trial before they make it to the altar. Redemption versus recidivism. Can Jacinda change, and does it matter? Port Charles is kinder to confessions than denials. If Jacinda is a character seeking transformation, it begins not with Michael's wallet but with her honesty. Owning the harm done to Drew, rejecting manipulation, and establishing boundaries with any lingering benefactors, would mark the start of an authentic pivot. Without that, the makeover narrative dissolves into costume play, new dress, same scheme. And yet, redemption in this town is never linear. People backslide. Deals sour. Old debts arrive like postcards from the past. The only way Michael's gamble pays off is if Jacinda's better self turns out to be stronger than her survival reflex. That is a tall order for someone who has learned to live by bargaining. 3 roads forward, and how they break. 1. The clean break. Michael keeps the alibi strictly transactional and severs personal ties once the danger passes. It's cold, effective, and worst of all, plausible. It protects the children, preserves his credibility, and prevents a scandal. It also leaves a bitter residue, Jacinda discarded as a tool, Michael haunted by what might have been if circumstances were kinder. 2. The leap of faith. Michael chooses the romance and declares the past a preface, not a prophecy. He offers real support, education, work, a way out of the murk, and bets on Jacinda's sincerity. If she rises, the story becomes a rare Port Charles fable. A damaged woman transforms, a guarded man learns to forgive, 2 children gain a steady presence who earned her place. If she falls, the costs will be spectacular: custody hearings, public humiliation, and a wound to Michael's family that will take years to stop bleeding. 3. The trap springs. The Sidwell rumor proves true, or another player weapon eases Jacinda's proximity. The alibi fractures under cross-examination, the timelines wobble, and Jacinda, squeezed by fear, turns state's witness or a rival's informant. Michael's prudence becomes an exhibit against him. In this scenario, love is not merely lost, it is used as evidence. Drew's shadow and the city's memory. Even if Jacinda never utters Drew's name again, the ketamine scandal hangs over every room she enters. It damaged a man's credibility, injured communities of trust, and turned medical ethics into a bargaining chip. If Jacinda is to have any future in this town, she must do more than distance herself from the act. She must repudiate the mindset that made such an act possible. Otherwise, every kindness she receives will feel like an investment waiting for a return. Meanwhile, the shooting investigation keeps widening its aperture, exposing crosscurrents among Portia, Nina, Curtis, and others whose interests intersect in uncomfortable ways. In Port Charles, truth is never a single line, it's a knot, and every tug tightens it somewhere else. The heart is evidence. Why viewers can't look away. Audiences are split, and rightly so. Those who have watched Michael claw his way back from loss want tenderness to finally choose him. They see in Jacinda not a trap but a mirror, someone who has also survived by improvisation and who might, with structure and love, become a fierce protector instead of a liability. Others see a pattern. Michael rescuing yet another person who might take him down with her. The discourse is noisy because the stakes are exacting. This is not a dalliance, It is a decision that touches children, legacy, and the hard-won boundaries that keep the Corinthos name from bearing more scars. Verdict deferred. The romance that will be decided by pressure. Port Charles does not allow love stories to remain private for long. Pressure decides them, pressure from the courts, from the press, from enemies who never miss a chance to insert a wedge. If Michael and Jacinda are real, they will survive scrutiny by becoming boring in the best way, predictable, honest, consistent. If they are a fantasy woven out of adrenaline and necessity, they will collapse at the first official question that neither can safely answer. In the end, Michael's challenge is brutally simple: protect his children, shield his integrity, and listen for the difference between a plea for help and a bid for leverage. Jacinda's challenge is simpler still. Choose truth, loudly and publicly, and keep choosing it when easier bargains slither back. Between those two choices lives a future that might be tender or perilous, redemptive or ruinous. Port Charles has always been a city where love and law practice in the same courthouse. Michael and Jacinda have entered their case on the docket. The jury, cops, exes, judges, and a watchful audience, has taken its seats. The testimony has begun. And like any great General Hospital story, the verdict will arrive only after every secret has tried, and failed, to stay hidden.